And
Jeanie, you said we welcome your comments and questions. Comment? You sound terrible. Are you okay?
I'm actually a lot better than I was. I've been, it's mostly in my sinuses, and of course then that drains into your throat and causes it's not really a sore throat, but it's just hoarseness. And then when I cough and stuff like that, then it tends to exacerbate it a little bit. But I'm actually feeling pretty good.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I think I said yesterday before we got cut off that I did go to the doctor yesterday just to make sure that I wasn't contagious, because I sure don't need to give any of this to the rest of the family. But he said no, that, you know, it was fine, and I'm on day 13 now anyway, so it should be clearing up, hopefully. Maybe I'll get out there in the salt water.
Well, is this from hobnobbing with persons from out of your area and family? I mean, we've got this family who's moved in with us, and I've been thinking, wow, I got to stay in good shape because these kids are at school and they're at jobs, and the mother teaches, and they're coming home with bugs from all out there, and I've got to welcome them and say, don't get me, but let's take care of ourselves. But I bet that was it, right?
Well, Michael had it about 3 days before we left, and then it didn't hit me until the day that we got to Branson, so we had already been up there for 3 or 4 days. And, of course, you know, who knows where it comes from, but I think Michael J. got some of the sinus stuff going on for him before he left, so it may have just been from changing altitudes or something, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Wow. And how's your son with his ear thing or head thing?
Yeah, he's scheduled to go to Vanderbilt on the 21st and have a consult with the neurosurgeon and a neurologist, and they'll decide, you know, they're going to do when. I don't know if he'll stay at Vanderbilt or if he'll come back. I told him, I said, if it looks like he's staying, I said, you know, I'll be there. It's like 5 hours from here. Because Gabby will definitely need help with the babies.
Yeah.
And I went by the school this morning to pick up Aria's homework because she was out all last week and she'll be out this week for vacation. But the pictures they've posted, it's definitely a vacation that she's going to remember, because they've done everything. I mean, they've putt-putted, they've been to the beach, and it looks like by their pictures that they practically had the beach to themselves.
Wow.
And it looks like the roads from here to there, they said they had no trouble. And I was concerned coming back south that we were going to run into some of the roads that, you know, like I-40 and I-26, both have portions that are out, but that's going over towards Asheville. But we also have areas around us like Damascus and Abingdon and Mendota and different areas other than Irwin. And, I mean, it's like it hit Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee. So within about an hour's drive of us in any direction, the towns are devastated. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I love how you've been posting from farmers like, I've got hay, come on over, I'm over here. And, you know, whatever you need of this, it's the beautiful side of humanity coming out all over the place.
It has been fabulous. I mean, there was this one group, I forget what they're called, but they're like mountaineers, and they all have horses and mules, and they've been taking supplies out to areas where cars can't go. And there was a post yesterday that had probably 30 names on it where somebody had hiked up the mountain and found all these people that were okay, you know, but they've not had cell service or anything, so they couldn't even let their families know that they were okay.
Wow. Amazing.
And there's still hundreds that are missing, and the death toll has risen. It's crazy, but anytime somebody posts something on Facebook that is like, you know, there's companies that are setting up, you know, free washes, you know, in trucks where you can go wash your clothes and dry your clothes, and it's just the whole community's coming together, providing food.
So gorgeous.
And,
so gorgeous.
Yeah, and I said, you know, I told Michael, I said one of the wonderful things I mean, everybody's jumping in to help other humans that they see are in need. Nobody is asking, what's your religion or what's your belief or what's your political stand. They're just helping, and I think that's phenomenal.
That's what we got to get back to.
It's interesting. In Asheville, there's a furniture company that has about $5 million worth of inventory in its store, and it was flooded up a foot on everything. And they said instead of insurance and all of that, we're going to put it out in the parking lot. If you need furniture, I know your house is, come and take it. Whatever you want. We got $6,000, $7,000, $3,000, $2,000, $1,000 pieces of furniture. It's going to be in the parking lot this time. You got access to this time. Just come with your truck and your ropes and take it.
Wow. Gorgeous.
Humanity comes out in the sometimes worst of times.
Yeah.
So how do you be, young lady?
I be very fine, and yet we've got a lot going on, including, and I'd love to ask for prayers from the community. I have a cousin who's a little older than I am who was slipping mentally, and she started wandering around at night. She lives in Eaton, Maine. I think it's Maine or New Hampshire. Gosh, I should know. In any case, she fell last night at 3 in the morning and broke her neck and several backbones. And she's now, thank God, in a coma in a hospice and probably won't be with us very long. But it's one of those things that the family we have a family email list, everybody and families do. And so these e-blasts are going out with the latest. And her name is Maggie, and she's a mensch. She's just been one of the most wonderful people. There is one thing I'd like to ask about that. Toward the time she began getting forgetful, her daughters were driving great distances to tag team each other, to take care of her, and her husband, the husband's pretty much an invalid with a bad back, and they've been together since high school. The daughters are going up there spelling each other, and they both are saying, what's weird is she's the sweetest, has always been the sweetest, most loving, generous, selfless person, but she gets into these moods where she is just demonically horrible. Now, what is that?
Michael, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Michael is shocked. He's not going to say another word.
Yeah,
everything that we ever learned has been blown apart.
You challenged. Well, when we recognize that everything is energy, and if we tap into an energy that is of what people want to make an external thing of demonic, then we can, there's going to be the expression of that energy. And, of course, the whole objective of the work is to do a sufficient quantity of forgiveness that there's nothing left in us to resonate with that which anyone would call demonic, that would call that far off of the base of love, that it's, considered a tragedy.
You mean if I had done my work, I wouldn't register her nastiness? I don't understand what you're saying, Michael.
No, I think you could register. You could look and go, wow, look at the trauma, the pain, and there wouldn't be disturbance in you about it. In fact, as I heard you ask for support for your cousin, it didn't sound like it came from any kind of trauma or upset. She's getting ready to pass, and I'm in a space of love for her passing and just asking everyone's support in providing that. Well, to the person who acts out the most dramatic trauma-based behavior, can I do the same? If I can't, then I have work to do. The person who acts out the most horrific political deception and such, can I be in the same space for that person as the person who is getting ready to pass, and I'm being a blessing for them?
I understand. I think my question's from the other side. What is it about her that this would be coming out? You're saying it's pain and unresolved trauma, or what? Or is it just part of being very sick toward dying, and it's not her at all? Or
well, is that the kind of life she's led?
no, she's been absolutely fantastic her whole life, and had a wonderful life.
Then probably something in her genes that's coming out. Probably something that doesn't even belong to her, and the filters are off. So I would join you in holding a space of prayer and breathing and love for her.
Yeah.
And this may be a major piece of healing for her genetic bloodline. I don't know.
I don't know either. I certainly don't feel angry. I'm just flummoxed. It's just so surprising. It's so unlike
shocked.
her.
Yeah.
This happened once. Tim and I used to volunteer at hospice. There was a hospice facility, the first one in the United States. It was in Branford, Connecticut, and it was near enough to us that we could volunteer there. And we were trained to be like nurses' aides. We did all the stuff that any nurse would do, except give a pill or a shot or something.
Right.
We would bathe and feed and make beds and do all the stuff, and we got good at it. And one woman in there had no friends, but she was the sweetest woman. She seemed to have no one who was watching out for her. And after she died, her body was on a gurney in a hallway. And Tim was there. And he sat with the body, and he said he felt as if he was being bombarded with dark forces coming from her. And it turns out that she had no family, because there was something about her that when you got a certain amount of close to her, something very dark was coming out. And yet anybody who didn't know her, she knew how to be perfectly friendly and nice. And we went to her funeral, and I sat there. There was nobody there, practically. About 4 people to this little service. And even there, I felt as if I had to do deep breathing. I didn't have any tools. I didn't know what to make of this. But I just felt as if I was sitting in a very dark place. And I prayed hard for her. I thought, whatever this is, she's surrounded with darkness, or she is darkness, or I couldn't make anything. Have you ever had an experience like that?
You need to unmute again, Michael.
Excuse me. I have one experience in mind that sort of fits with that. Way back in the early days of doing this work, I was still in Atlanta. So that was the time my kids were born, so it's 40 plus years ago. And there was a group of women that invited me to come and speak, and I did, and I came and spoke to their group. And after the group, people were kind of standing around talking, and there was one woman who was just vicious-mouthed about one of the other people that was there. And a couple of them got into this gossip fest, just nasty gossip. And I said, well, thank you, ladies, but I'm going to leave now. I had no reason or desire to hang out there. And about 10 minutes after I left, I got a call from the person who had invited me and said, could you please come back and help us? Well, what's going on? Well, it's with those 2 women that were going back and forth at it, and they got into some really nasty places with each other, and now one of them is like there's nobody touching her, but she's being strangled to death.
Oh, my God.
And so I went back, and this woman was choking as though, it was almost as if somebody had their hands around her throat.
Wow.
And I had no experience in the arena of anything to do with what people call possession, but what spontaneously came from me was to deny that whatever it was that had her by the throat had no power, and that it was finished. And it was finished. I mean, it was just totally and completely intuitive. What I gathered from that, what I came away from that with, was that this woman had gotten into such a negative state, a negative energy, that the energy she was generating, she was in such an attack mode that she set this physiological attack on herself on an energetic level. That was my take, and that broke it. Not that I had any knowledge about anything to do with it, because I had no experience and no knowledge whatsoever, but that's the closest thing I can come to. And that's what I walked away feeling like Ruka had taught me, was this person had generated so much attack and negativity that she was experiencing it in her own physiology.
Wow.
And the denial that it had any power was what broke I guess you might say, broke the state of self-hypnosis that she was in.
Wow. Well, that's as good of an explanation as any. The great mystery.
That's the only time I've ever had that type of experience.
Yeah.
I have had others that over the years, occasionally, 2 or 3 times, where somebody has been in a state which one might call being possessed, and basically saw that simple denial that whatever it was had any power, was what broke the trance they were in.
And you did that. You denied that there was power and took the power away, or dissolved it.
Yeah.
That's been phenomenal. Boy, I wish I had that kind of intuition. I just got scared.
Yeah, I think a lot of people put themselves into a deep state of somnambulism with their fear-based thoughts, and it can turn into physiological expression in their own bodies.
Yeah, and they think it's an entity, or they feel as if it's happening to them, that they're not doing it.
Yeah. Of course, isn't that what every person who's a card-carrying member, very devout, religious, one world, universal Church of Blame? Yes, something else is doing this to me. I have nothing to do with it. What was that?
I
didn't hear you
laughed because the way you came out with your wonderful string of words, the one world religion of the non-being mind, or whatever it is, you've got it down so pat that you actually switched the words around and choked on yourself practically. Your genius, you got to slow your horses down. Your genius is getting ahead of you. Your mouth couldn't do it that time.
Oh, well.
That was very entertaining.
But isn't that everybody's story, that, it's all somebody else. It's all, I don't care what it is.
Yep. Yeah, even on the Dr. Tim show. That's the
most dramatic state of self-hypnosis that virtually everybody in the world is in. And when the masters said transcend, they weren't saying float out in space somewhere. They were saying get out of the trance you're in. Get out of that state of hypnosis.
Yeah.
When the scripture spoke about do not be conformed to this world, what they were saying, don't be hypnotized by these energetic patterns that are around you that, other people would love to run your life with. You started to say something about something that happened on Dr. Tim's show? Well,
yeah, he took me to another little level. He was telling about somebody who, actually this was from the day before, but it popped into my mind while he was talking today. A man was saying that a housemate of his is sort of not living up to their deal. He's putting furniture here and there, or dumping stuff on the property that shouldn't be there. And the man who was speaking to Dr. Tim said his intentions, he was trying to show me up for being he thinks I'm weak or whatever. And I don't know if I should even be taking the time with this. I have always thought, well, if that person really did intend ill to me, then I have a right to feel the way I do. But that isn't true either. It's like it's all my responsibility, no matter what the person is doing or whether it's true that they have bad intentions. So what? What are you doing with it? It was just another layer of understanding.
Cool. Yeah, and it's not my responsibility if somebody's doing whatever it is they're doing that's out of integrity. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It is my responsibility that it's in my space, and I'm a participant in it, and it may be a call. You know, the Course in Miracles talks about there are two things. There's the presence of love, and there's a call for love. So this may be a call for love. Can I fulfill it? If I can't, then it's my work to do.
Yeah. Well, that's just right. If you're owning your reactions, you are much freer to take effective action in the situation, which might include inviting the person to leave your property forever. You know, but
absolutely. I mean, it's very reasonable to hold somebody accountable. You know, I've shared many times over the years about Judge Asa Kelly, who was a Superior Court judge in Albany, Georgia, and I mean, he was such a gift because while putting many people in prison, never punished anybody, never had a vicious thought toward anyone who came before him who'd done, in many cases, some pretty vicious things. He was just there as that space, cherishing and honoring his community and taking care of it.
Right. That's a good example.
So anything else exciting in your world today?
Oh, lots of things, but why don't you go on? I mean, we have this new family living with us, and we're just having such a good time. May it last.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, well, you have a blessed day. We cherish you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Arnie, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
It is all quiet on this end. I was looking to see if we had an email that we hadn't answered yet. I was thinking that we did, but I think we have gotten them all. And nobody has a hand up.
Well, all the days that we've been missing, I would have thought would have inspired some questions, that the shows that were played would have resonated some things, and anybody listening would have had their notebook ready and wrote their questions down and then called and said, here's the question from Tuesday's show or Thursday's show. But perhaps not.
We actually had a hand just now go up. And
great.
It's Miss Belinda, 541. You're on the air.
Ah, welcome, young lady. How are you?
I am. I don't know if you're aware of that. I've been having back issues.
Oh,
so
no,
I'm
no, I wasn't.
Sort of out of. So I'm sort of out of commission here. Larry's having to be doing his load and most of my load too, and it's been very challenging. And I've pretty much made the connections between my back issues and my mental, emotional issues. And so I'm working on that. I'm waiting for my final clinic visit to show the results of the full body scan I had for osteoporosis, because I've gotten quite kyphotic, and I have some vertebra fractures in my lower thoracic vertebrae, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. And so,
bless your spine.
Yeah, really. So anyway, and I'm sure that this is precisely what I need to go through to experience, and I think it's probably ancestral, familial, because most of my mother's side of the family had severe kyphosis and all kinds of problems. In fact, I just found out that my brother told me, which I never knew. He went to visit her when she was dying in the hospital, and he said that her osteoporosis was so bad that she was in pain every time she moved, and every time the nurses moved her. It was in horrible pain. I said, thanks. I really didn't want to hear that, but thank you anyway for that information. And so there's just a lot swirling around here. But what I'm calling about today, that maybe we can mop up fairly quickly while Larry's on his walk, is that I have deep shame. I think I mentioned to you about lying to my mother when I was 3 because I was had been playing doctor with the little neighborhood boys, and I lied to my mom because I got an infection and said, no, I hadn't been. And I did not realize the lifelong ramifications of that because I think I inherited, I downloaded the belief that I was a nasty, filthy, shameful little girl for doing these nasty, filthy things.
Wow.
Yeah, and that.
You mean for having a natural curiosity that is built into every human being about their own and others' human anatomy?
Right, and also more
and you know what God would say to you, right? You know what God would say to you, right? Who told you you were
sweetheart.
naked?
I know.
Who told you were naked?
I remember mentioning that
God.
to you on the show. It's really interesting. Who told you were naked?
I mean,
well,
it's the most natural thing. The first time a kid looks and goes, well, that's different than mine. What's that all about? Like, someone would have to be brain dead. A child would have to be brain dead not to be curious and want to know and want to touch and want to find out. I mean, and it's really sad that the adults carry such guilt and shame that they, instead of treat that as, oh, well, this is what, and matter-of-factly explain and speak and hold a space of love. It's really sad that the adults don't have the tools to work through it so that gets loaded on to the next generation, the next and the next.
Okay, I've got more to add to that, was because even at 3 years old, it felt pleasurable, and that I'm a highly passionate woman, and I did not allow myself any passion in my life. I would cut it off. Rightfully so.
It's never too late to start.
No, it isn't, and rightfully so, because I got emotionally involved with a married man when I was married, and fortunately I was a born-again Christian, and I really listened to my higher wisdom and passed on that. But still, and we were rocking, my husband and I, before he died, so I learned from that, and a nurse friend said, talk to your husband. What's the matter with you? Oh, my God, we never talked in our family. Well, talk to your husband. And so we were rocking, but, And also, when I was 12 years old, my mother and my stepfather were having serious problems, and he and I got into kissing ventures. And, again, I was aroused. I would have been a wonderful Lolita, if you wanted to say that. But I'm just a very passionate woman, and I've managed to isolate myself from my passion, and it's affected the rest of my life, mainly because of this shame and guilt and all of this that's in here. So I'm going to I want to do work with it. I would like to do it, though, in private, not on the radio show, and especially not with my husband around, because I haven't even told him, and it hasn't been appropriate for our relationship.
Right. Right. Understood.
And we're doing great now, but still, there's just a lot of work. He's very outer-directed, very goal-directed, very outer-directed.
Right.
And so there's just certain areas we cannot relate to. and he's growing in his own way, and he picks up little bits here and there. But I would like to do that work, and I'm getting some worksheets, hopefully today, because I like to get them on the memory stick to take down to the printer. And but I have to watch how much I go around, how much I'm in the car, all of this. So I'll keep you posted for sure, but hold me up. And I just fleshed out, I'm not going to tell you any of the gory details, but I did manage to keep my virginity, and I did manage to keep my marriage intact, and I think that's very important. And I did it. In the marriage, it was because there were 5 people involved, including an unborn child and the wife of the gentleman that I fell in love with, quote unquote. And so, and she's still my friend, casual acquaintance, even now, many, many years later. What was that? Something like 55 years later. Stefan has died. He died in 2016. Right. Unrequited love. You know, he just always wanted to connect with me on a deeper level, and it's just like, it's very strange, Michael. I'm going to share this with you because it's wondrous how insights come to us. But I had read Dr. Zhivago, and being a born-again Christian, I just said, how could Dr. Zhivago do that to his wonderful wife that he adored? And then and Urcha said, oh, you want to know how come? Because the same thing happened to me, and I wasn't even in the Civil War. There was no Civil War, except the Civil War in myself.
Yeah.
So I would like to mop that up. I've been aware of my pain, but I hadn't been able to pinpoint it, and I've got it pinpointed now, thanks to Dr. Tim and his sharing of a story in, I think, yesterday's show. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, holding the space for each piece of work that needs to be done in that arena, that's a major life piece of work. And at the same time, on a parallel but different topic, when you're talking about what's happened physiologically, I assume you're probably taking vitamin D3?
Probably not.
Okay, well.
Everything is in our food. Everything is in our food because that's what our income. And we're still having a hard time living within our income. And I am working towards abundance thinking rather than poverty thinking. We have very creative minds. We've done our own medical research. We are aware of the foods with vitamin D in them. And we would like bioavailable ones, like what is in food. And so we're working in that direction.
You're getting out in the sun? You're getting sunshine without sunscreen?
I was before I got this back problem. But that has been one of my weak areas, and we live right about the 45th parallel, and so you know what that means in the winter. So, I'm working on it all.
So my input would be D3 doesn't have to be overly expensive to supplement, but in terms of strengthening your bones, some D3 and some K2 might be very cost-effective in terms of keeping you mobile and functional and recalcifying your bones.
Right, and the K2 is the animal K, right? Or is it in vegetables too?
I'm not sure what vegetables you'll find it in, but it's not an overly expensive thing to supplement.
Right. Well, they're one of the two.
Leafy greens.
K2 and K3. Yeah, and one of them is supposed to be the one that's the body directly the D3. I'm going to work. Thank you very much, and we've been.
Yeah, the K2 specifically. The K2 specifically helps to direct the calcium where it's needed. in the body. You know, people can have lots and lots and lots of calcium. In fact, most people have too much calcium, and that's one of the problems. When K2, as I understand it, then helps to direct that calcium into the bone where it's needed. So that might be one thing that you have difficulty at this stage with the fact that you've got the known deficiency on a physiological level, that you're probably not going to find enough of it in just food, and would probably be worth supplementing at least that.
That might be, and then I have to look at the digestive process, because with the low hydrochloric acid, I don't digest my minerals very well, or a lot of food. So, and that's directly connected to what's the use, Michael, in Louise Hay's probable causes of habitual thought pattern causes. What's the use? Defeatism. Shutting down so that you're not going to take in new information. You know, it's the assimilation of the stomach is a metaphor for this, or the assimilation of the mind.
Yeah.
So we're working on all of that. I'm sure I've got lots of work to do. I've been tapping, I've been blessing, and I have been. Tim said something today about the worksheet is basically hologramic, mathematical hologramic profile, and I said, "Oh my God, I can wrap my mind around that one." a quantum, it's a quantum worksheet without all of the heavy-duty scientific mathematics thrown in it, and I said, I think I can wrap my mind around that, because I really relate to quantum physics. So talk more about quantum physics. I love it. Tim is in his show too, and the connections between the two. Thank you so much. So I shall.
Well, holding this space, young lady.
Yeah. All right. We're going to work on cause, Michael.
And another aspect with everything another aspect of what tends to express in the spine specifically is anger, rage. And you might also look at, is there any rage toward the others that were involved in all of these issues that you spoke of, i.e. particularly stepfather?
We loved each other. We loved each other immensely. There's no rage there. The rage is self-directed. And at my mother, the primal scream, right? Yeah. Yep. Dr. Sarno's rage.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
so
good.
At 12 years of age, to have a mature adult man, sexually experienced man, come on to you sexually, it would be probably worth looking at any underlying dynamic, because that's really an assault to a young girl, and an unethical assault for a man in that age range too.
I understand that, and I also understand that there was deep love in there. And he asked me to marry him after my mother died. Because there was between us that bond. You know, he used to sit down, play jacks with me, take me down to the store to buy my Hit Parades magazine. He was a 3-year-old child whose mother's died. We bled to death while in bed while he was 3 years old, and then the classic story of the wicked stepmother and being beaten all of his life when he was a kid. And so, you know, he was just a lost child, and I loved him to the day he died. And I knew that at 12. Yeah, it brought up the issues of the blame and shame around my 3-year-old issue with my mom. But I had total clarity around my stepdad. you know.
Cool.
And thank God Mom got an inkling of it, and she threatened him with his life, literally. And she told me that she threatened him with his life. And I loved him. I wasn't going to do anything that would hurt him and, of course, would hurt me. And I grew to appreciate that about my mom. You know, I really, really did. I blessed her for that.
Well, breathing with you and supporting you and opening everything that needs to be opened and moved through.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. I feel stronger than I ever have been before.
Awesome.
And I will heal from this osteoporosis with Larry's help and your help and Rucha's help and the community of love's help and Tim's help and Jeannie's help and my family and friends.
Holding a space for you, dear heart. Appreciating the way that you softened the hard edge that you've carried around for a long time.
Well, there's still this 3-year-old little girl in there that says, would you pay attention to me? it creeps up. I find it, only I haven't been able to catch it fast enough to take my flashlight down from over my head. There's a very funny monkey in here, Michael and Jeanie. I was born in the year of monkey. It's not my fault.
Well, everybody's got their funny monkey, so.
I know. Yeah.
Holding the space.
It's in spades when you were born in the year of the monkey. Bless you all. It's
all right,
so much
lots of love and
fun to have
blessings.
fun. Okay, bye-bye.
Yes. Yeah, bye-bye. Okay, Miss Jeanie. Do we have anything else happening in the chat room or anybody in the phone queue with a hand up? Or do you have anything to share in the conversation, sweetie? Hello, Jeanie. So do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
It is all quiet on this end.
Okay. Well then, let's, instead of going back to the, seems how our time is short, instead of going back to the work we were doing with the Book of Thomas, I'm going to put that on hold. And I'm going to go into some stuff about the codependence process and the inclination to do this. And so, just looking up a note here. So the power person dynamic. If one thinks that they can pull off the power person dynamic, one thinks that they can become the one with the power. You know, we've talked about the 3 behaviors that are possible when the power person dynamic is operative, and that each relates to the level of stress. No stress, we'll do whatever we did to get along with our power person. Stress starts to build, we'll do what we did to resist and survive with the power person. And then in the third case, becoming ultra stressed, we'll do whatever the power person did that we hated the most. And the dynamic that's happening when we do that is the belief that if I could successfully pull off this behavior that my power person used to win over me, then I would become the winner. Like I would then, this is an unconscious dynamic, I would then have the power of my power person. And then achieving that goal by playing out that power person dynamic, by doing that behavior, maybe afterward, stroking your head with, oh my God, what have I done? But when that unconscious goal is achieved, and it's a powerful goal to cancel the need to have the power over someone else that your power person had over you. I think that's a really important goal, extremely important goal, to cancel the goal person had over you. But in the meantime, in the attempt in achieving or appearing to achieve by playing out that behavior, there's this hit of dopamine. But the unconscious impact of that is the underlying resonance of the pain that the power person dynamic was instilled with. And so even though there's this shot of happiness that comes from this dopamine hit, fake meaning I achieved the goal even though it was a goal that was unconscious and destructive, I still get this hit of dopamine by achieving it. But underlying it all is the whole unresolved dis-ease process that was involved with the power person and taking on that power person dynamic. And again, it's usually with a parent that happens. So that person dynamic is so global, is so universal, literally running the world. And another aspect of playing out that power person dynamic, I think, is that people can become addicted to getting even with the power person, even though, the power person event maybe happened decades ago, but playing it out with someone else. And so a vengeance addiction, for those who've done the codependence to interdependence intensive, where we talked about the pseudo solutions of the non-being mind. Doing some work with someone recently, a new piece of the puzzle that came in, a new insight for me in that list of pseudo solutions is that vengeance is a pseudo solution. If I could just get even, then everything would be okay. I'd have my power back, I'd have my integrity back, or whatever. And that this becomes another one of the pseudo solutions of the non-being mind, remembering that the number one pseudo solution is if I could just figure this out, and recognizing that there's no figuring it out. But what Yeshua's first century Aramaic forgiveness tool does is it gives us a chance to access directly the energetic dynamic of that early experience. And sometimes an experience that, goes back to, 2, 3, 4 years of age. So this is a place where, if you remember a song we've mentioned oftentimes over the years, from back, 60s, 70s, and the melody line of the song was, I can't get no satisfaction. If you find yourself in a position where no matter what control, power, no matter what happens, I can't get no satisfaction, it's because you're still working on a power person dynamic. And there will never be satisfaction in all of the pseudo solutions, all of the things that unconscious, unresolved energy says you need to do. It's all totally fake. If you were to achieve it to absolute perfection as you imagined it, there would still be no satisfaction in it. And of course, as that melody line in that song says, it goes on to say, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. You can't figure it out, and you can't play it out enough to be finished with it. But what you can do is you can recognize in each and every instant The stress is at that level that we call ultra stressed. You can look at the goal driving that particular circumstance or situation in your mind. What is it you want from the object of attention, the person that you're now pointing your frustration or your irritation or your upset or your condemnation or your guilt tripping or whatever it is? You're making them wrong. You're telling them what's wrong with them, whatever it is. That will never bring satisfaction to your mind. It will never bring resolution. And yet, it's so deeply embedded because it's been going on for generations and generations and generations. So a good question to ask yourself in that situation where there's some sort of, and it may be, so subtle that you don't really even acknowledge it to yourself, that there's upset and it's being pointed at someone, that little dagger that's going out. And that's the place too, where, to me, this absolute genius tool that Yeshua created 2,000 years ago of recognizing that the reason the mind is playing out whatever that is because that power person dynamic is still unresolved. And the reason the mind is constructing something out of the power person dynamic is because there's still denial about the power person dynamic, and that means it's projected into your brain's image of someone else. And the closer someone gets to you energetically, the easier it is to put it into your brain's image of them. You remember that the most common refrain in our culture that acknowledges the failure of relationship. People say the honeymoon is over. They may hang around a relationship for decades after that, but the honeymoon is over. What does that mean? That means that I've taken my unresolved power person dynamic and fully massaged it into a place where it now comes up and it wears the face of my partner. And although it sounds like my voice speaking to the partner, it's my power person's voice speaking through me. Playing that out once again. And it becomes the next urgent level of healing within the context of relationship. Our workshop is not healing your relationships, but healing through relationships. It's through those relationships. It's through those projections that we get to heal. So when I find myself talking about my partner and why they can't do it because this is wrong with them, what I'm saying is I have a power person dynamic where my power person kept telling me what was wrong with me. And now I'm passing it on to my partner with that compulsive need to tell them what's wrong with them or what they've done wrong. Or, remember, ultra stressed. The mind will prompt you to do whatever it is that you hated most that your power person did to you. So if you find yourself doing that, that's a good place to step back and go, how did it feel when my power person did that to me? It did not feel good. And you will not claim two things. You will not be able to claim the power of your power person, nor will you be able to reclaim your own human life by winning at the power person dynamic. That is, of being able to successfully carry it off and convince the person you're giving it to that it's their problem. Again, the genius mind that said, no, you look at the goal you're holding for that person that you think is the reason you're frustrated. the reason you're irritated, the reason you're in whatever the energy dynamic is. Look for the goal that you have for that person. Cancel that goal. Breathe. Ask to be shown, and allow that projection, that image massaged into looking like this person you're in front of, allow it to collapse. And as it collapses, and as you ask Rucha to bring forward the active presence of love, as you're willing to turn it over instead of trying to figure it out, then the unconscious energy behind it is available to be resolved. There's no other way I know to consistently, persistently make that underlying unconscious energy available than looking at even the subtlest goal you're holding, or whoever you're pointing it at this time. Canceling that goal, breathing, inviting Rucha in, and allowing that energy to move. Otherwise, anything that is accomplished by playing out the power person, that the mind says is an accomplishment, oh, I won. No, there's no winning that game. There's only healing. And so our objective here is to bring forward the opportunity for that healing and to create support for it happening. And thank you each for joining us. It's absolutely delightful to have you with us. And create the best year out of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world.